What's up, Mafia Nation? Welcome back. It's LVT.
I'm MAGZ.
And we're here to do another reaction video for you. Let's get it.
Oh boy. So we finally hit that portion of Sabaton history.
Oh boy.
This is the final solution, which is the story of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And when it starts off with the content warning, when they've never started off with the content warning,
Yeah,
that's...
I've never seen a content warning on any of these videos. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just, the Holocaust is a very important story.
Yes.
And it was a very important time for the world, but it was so tragic and so bloody. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was bad.
And there were a lot of lives lost, and we've already touched a little bit on this with
Inmate
4859.
4859,
yes. Where he purposely got put into the Holocaust as a spy.
Well, into Auschwitz.
Yeah, into Auschwitz as a spy.
Yeah, and that was even before they were taking the Jews there. That was just when it was like...
Yeah, because right when he was escaping is when the Jews were first starting to be captured and gassed.
Yeah.
So, it's just, this is definitely going to be a very emotional and,
it's going to be tough.
yeah, but we're gonna read this content warning for you guys in case anybody else is triggered by anything like that.
Yes.
So the content warning is: the video depicts events of historical and humanitarian importance that were especially graphic and violent. Material may include descriptions, recordings, photographs, and videos of hateful language, violence, death or dying, genocide. Parental advisory for viewers under 16 years old is advised. I know you guys will see this screen here in a minute, but it's going to be tinier writing for you, so I wanted to make sure I read that in case anybody was triggered by anything that we're about to view.
Yes. But first,
make sure you subscribe.
Smash on that notification bell.
And like, comment, and share.
So everybody can do the same. Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous.
This episode of Sabaton History is about one of the darkest chapters in human history.
This is the final solution.
It happened on November 9th, 1938. The National Socialist leadership of Germany had gathered in Munich to commemorate the Beer Hall Putsch, Adolf Hitler's failed attempt to grab power 15 years earlier. Then the news arrived that Ernst von Rath had succumbed to his wounds. He was a young German diplomat who had been shot in the German embassy in Paris by Herschel Greenspan, a Polish-German Jew. Joseph Goebbels, German propaganda minister, now addressed the party officials and spoke vividly of a global Jewish conspiracy that aimed to push Germany into a war with France. Outraged, the men rushed to the telephones and urged their local Nazi henchmen to act. What followed was Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, a nationwide pogrom against Jewish communities in Germany. 1,000 synagogues and prayer rooms were vandalized or set on fire. 7,500 shops were wrecked and looted. Jewish neighborhoods were attacked, and 90 Jews were killed. It was the climax of years of anti-Jewish policies and harassment. Adolf Hitler's chancellorship had turned anti-Semitic rhetoric into state policy. Since mid-1935, Jews faced increased harassment. Under Reinhard Heydrich, the German Security Service, SD, began monitoring Jewish organizations and affairs more closely. To the Nazis, Judaism was not only totally alien to German culture, but also the natural enemy of National Socialism. Hitler believed in an international Jewry that pulled the strings behind both Soviet Bolshevism and Anglo-Saxon capitalism, and Germany must free itself from their influence once and for all. For the Führer's planned cleansing of the Reich, Heydrich recruited Adolf Eichmann, a former desk worker at Dachau concentration camp. It would be his job to implement these stricter policies aimed at excluding Jews from the German economy and everyday public life. By making their lives as miserable as possible, they would push the Jews to voluntarily emigrate from the Reich. They were not to feel welcome nor safe in Germany, and public opinion was to be swayed accordingly. Over the following years, Jews were denied entry into theaters, into cinemas, museums, and restaurants. They were banned from using public transportation and even owning bicycles. Shopping was restricted to 1 hour a day, and there was a strict curfew in the evening. And Jews were not allowed to buy certain things like cigars or flowers. They were not allowed to own telephones or typewriters either. They eventually had to wear a yellow badge to visibly differentiate themselves from everyone else, and they paid extra taxes. The Nuremberg racial laws of 1935 were set in place to legally segregate the Jews. Citizenship was restricted to people of German blood. Jews were reduced to mere subjects of the Reich, without political rights. They were fired from the civil service. Teachers and professors were ousted. Jewish-owned shops were attacked. The Hitler Youth Organization chased Jews out of public spaces. The laws were so strictly enforced that even the smallest misconduct could lead to imprisonment or worse. Jews lived under a constant fear of inspections, house searches, and death threats. And then Kristallnacht happened. Hitler, however, was furious at Goebbels about inciting all the violence in the streets. An unregulated mob roaming the streets not only discredited Nazi authority, but also had a sobering effect on the German people. Many bystanders were shocked by the uncontrolled violence and the lawless behavior of the mob. Worse for Hitler, they felt sympathy for the Jews that were manhandled and humiliated by the Nazi Party members.
Crazy to think that that wasn't incited by Hitler.
Actively forbade any such organized pogroms in the future. The Jews, he insisted, were to be expelled from Germany.
It's also insane how smart of a man he was, that he was able to plan these things out and know exactly how to get people to agree to what he said, even though it was completely wrong and completely uncredited, and it's insanity.
Yeah, it definitely is, to think about how actually intelligent he was to get such a huge body of people to follow his
Rhetoric.
Yeah, it's just every word that he breathed was essentially the word of God to them, and they followed it as if it was, religion. And that's scary to think that people can be that persuaded that quickly.
Yeah.
Humiliated by the Nazi Party members. Hitler actively forbade any such organized pogroms in the future. The Jews, he insisted, were to be expelled from Germany through laws and edicts and detained far from the public eye. Over the next months, Jews who had broken the laws were sent to concentration camps, to Buchenwald, Dachau, and Sachsenhausen, which had previously housed political prisoners and actual criminals. Now the majority of the inmates were Jews. The fate of the Jews was to be tightly bound to Hitler's ambitions. On the road to war, the Führer stylized himself as something of a prophet. In his speeches, he repeatedly warned of international Jewish influence, and that if the Jews would steer Germany into another world war, then they would not survive to see its end. It seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy, as by December 1941, Hitler had invaded the Soviet Union and declared war on the United States, but his belief in the international conspiracy remained, and his war became a war against Jewish life itself. On December 20th, 1941.
And like you just said, the fact that Hitler noticed, okay, all of this is going on. I'm going to plant the seed of, if these people get too heavily involved with our country, we're going to end up going to war. Meanwhile, he's planning on an attack to start a war.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd already planted the seed that it was their fault to get all of these people rallied behind him. Like, oh yeah, he was right. Like,
Again,
it's their fault.
Yeah, again, horrible human being, but absolute genius to get what he wanted to get.
Yeah, it's just It's crazy to think that, like, this happened so long ago. And like you said, horrible person, but insanely intelligent. Or just a
On
really
December
good
20th,
manipulator.
1941,
One of the two.
in a villa outside Berlin, the Wannsee Conference
Very
began.
charismatic.
Prominent Nazi Party members met with officials from the Reich Main Security Office and from the occupied territories. Here, they would decide once and for all how to answer their Jewish question. The discussions were to offer, quote, clarity on questions of principle and the, quote, preparation of the final solution of the Jewish question in Europe. Emigration was not enough anymore. The war had changed Judenpolitik to something far, far more sinister. Authority over the final solution was given to the SS. Its leader, Heinrich Himmler, envisioned first Europe-wide deportations of Jews from the west to the east. Eichmann's office was ordered to prepare the removal of hundreds of thousands of Jews from Germany, Austria, Bohemia, and Moravia to the overcrowded ghettos of Eastern Europe. Since the war began in September 1939, the Jews of Galicia, the Vaterland, and Poland, organized as the Generalgouvernement, had been forced to live in segregated residential districts. But even though they were impoverished and cramped together in appalling living conditions, these Jewish communities survived. The final solution was to deny them even that. SS doctors now came into the ghettos to sort the residents into two categories. The first category was for young and healthy Jews who were able to work for the German war effort. The second was for those that could not, the old, the weak, the sick. These people were to be liquidated. The regular concentration camps had already improvised special treatment programs. That is a euphemism for the outright murder of Jews that could no longer work. Jews that were sent from the Łódź ghetto to the Chełmno camp were herded up a ramp and through a door. Behind that door, they entered the dark back compartment of a gas van. On their drive to a remote location, the men and women were asphyxiated, either with bottled carbon monoxide gas or exhaust fumes piped into the compartment. Once they reached the designated burial ground, a group of Jewish prisoners was ordered to drag the dead from the van into excavated pits. At the end of the day, those workers had to enter the pit as well and were shot dead. The Belzec death camp was the first installation for mass murder on an industrial scale. Belzec was enclosed by fences of barbed wire, watchtowers, and when trains full of Jews arrived, usually an SS officer stood in front of the crowd and reassured them that they would only remain in Belzec for a short time. They would now have a shower and receive their valuables and other belongings afterwards. Undressed, the men walked first into a long corridor, walled off by barbed wire. Now it was there that the Ukrainian guards took over from the Germans. Chronic shortages of manpower forced the SS to rely on multitudes of foreign auxiliaries, known as Hivis or Trolniki men. Ukrainians, Belarusians, Lithuanians, Latvians, and Poles were recruited to serve as guards at the extermination camps. Armed with bayonets, clubs, and whips, they broke any resistance with terrifying violence. The gas chambers themselves were crude, simple buildings, 4 by 8 meters long, 2 meters high, with double wooden walls. Essential was the airtight rubber-sealed door, which also had to be strong enough to resist any strong force from within. Several hundred prisoners were pressed into the small space of the gas chamber. Once the door shut behind the crowd, the lethal exhaust fumes from a dismounted Soviet tank engine were piped into the chamber. The men were so tightly packed that when the doors were again opened, the dead stood in an upright position, mouths slightly open, with their hands often pressed against their chests. The women went next,
So messed up.
after fellow prisoners came to cut off their hair to be used for industrial purposes. By then, it must have dawned on many of the women what fate awaited them. The SS men also didn't care that the guards raped many of the young girls before sending them into the gas chamber. The dead were buried in large pits concealed from the train station, and Jewish workers tidied up the station platform before the next train arrived. The final solution was a vicious cycle. Ghettos were refilled with Jews from Central Europe as the former inhabitants were sent to either labor camps or condemned to death. Each wave of roundups meant a death sentence for tens of thousands of Jews. As the SS grew in power over civil administration, the classifications changed, and more Jews were marked for death. New extermination camps were built as well. Treblinka, Majdanek, and Sobibor. Treblinka had little of the clean and deceptive murder machine the Nazis first envisioned. The massacres often started right at the train station, as the Jews were alerted to their impending fate by the corpses lying on the ground.
Idiots.
The camp simply killed people too fast to hide its purpose. It is estimated
Right, like at that
Treblinka
point,
killed-
they're like, they got sloppy with it. Like, they're like, well,
I think that's just that one in particular. That's just proving to the bloodlust of the people that were in charge of those. It's all messed up. I can't even think of words.
yeah, it's just sad to think about how many innocent lives were lost just because they believed in something different. And it's sad because the world really hasn't changed all that much. There's just not an open place for a mass genocide. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, let's hope that we learned our lesson from this,
Knocking on that wood.
you know?
fast.
Unfortunately,
hide its
humans are
purpose.
stupid.
It is estimated that Treblinka killed around 4,600 people a day. That's nearly 200 per hour, every hour. Auschwitz became the last place designated as an extermination camp, though it had been in use since early in the war as a terror camp for Polish officials and dissidents. In July 1942, it was incorporated into the final solution. While Auschwitz I was to remain mainly a concentration camp for forced labor, a second Auschwitz camp at Birkenau would experiment with new extermination techniques. The first gas chamber there opened in March
That just gave me the
1942,
heebie-jeebies.
and it was outfitted with crematoria for disposing of the corpses of the dead. Once the prisoners were inside the gas chambers, SS men wearing gas masks would remove the covers of the ceiling vents, opening cans of Zyklon B poison. The body heat of the people pressed into the chamber caused the Zyklon B crystals to vaporize, releasing hydrogen cyanide gas. The Jews painfully choked to death on the fumes in minutes, even seconds. Auschwitz was also the place where German doctors experimented with mass sterilization of many Jews that were not destined for immediate extermination. What had begun in 1935 would find its terrible conclusion in that year of 1942. The Nazis envisioned a final solution that would exterminate Jewish life in Europe. And as long as the war was fought, as long as the Nazis remained in power, and as long as the camps remained open, the Jews would suffer and die. The final solution was the darkest chapter in German history, and one of the darkest in our world's history. And the Holocaust is vital to be remembered as both a commemoration for its victims and as a warning to future generations of the depths to which humanity can sink and the atrocities that man can commit against his fellow man if the darkness and the hatred in some human souls is left unchecked and allowed to grow and fester.
The final solution. Dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions burn, the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames.
Parrot, you've been to Auschwitz. I've never been there. I haven't been there yet, but you guys have been there, yeah?
Yeah, we've been there 2 times with the band stopping by. Obviously, we play a lot of concerts in Krakow, and this is very close to Krakow. It's a place I always recommend our crew members and band members to go and visit. And even though the second time we came there, I choose not to go inside. I think that one time in this place is enough. It leaves you with serious scars after you come out, that's for sure. When we wrote the song, we thought we seen so many documentaries, we read so much about Auschwitz that we thought we could sort of be prepared to what we're gonna face.
Yeah.
I mean, both me and Joachim talked about this so many times afterwards that you can't get prepared for this. Because no matter how much you think you know about it, no matter how much you think that you are sort of prepared yourself, you are absolutely zeroed out when you start to walk around there, and when you walk out of there, there's not anything left in you, and that's why the reason is I had no reason to go in there and feel this again. I encourage the other guys to go inside, but I wouldn't go inside myself a second time.
And just writing this song in the first place, I mean, it is a heavy topic, sure, but it is also a controversial topic. You know there are Holocaust deniers out there. You know there's people out there that when you wrote the song, did you get reception? Did you get critique from?
We get as.
I don't understand how there's Holocaust deniers out there. If you are out there and you think the Holocaust didn't happen, you're stupid. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. There's so many documents, there's so many videos, there's so many pictures, there's so many different accounts of this that not everybody could be lying.
Right. Yeah, there's so much proof and so much history, and I mean, like, read the Diary of Anne Frank. Like, I had to read that in school.
Yeah.
And, like, that's coming from a 14-year-old girl. And how terrifying it was to have to hide in wall panels for your life.
Yeah.
Because somebody would kill you because of what you were born into. You didn't have that choice. It's just, and I get what Par is saying with, I think it would be a truly eye-opening and heart-wrenching experience to go tour the site if ever given the opportunity. I don't think that I would be able to not do it, but I feel like doing it would change you as a person.
Yeah, because you're literally walking the walk that a lot of people actually, had taken as their last walk in their last moments, and not even knowing 9 times out of 10 that they were about to die in mass quantities, and it was a death factory. They wheeled people in like cattle, gassed them, incinerated them, did another load, rinse and repeat like it was nothing.
Yep. And it lasted that way for a while. So many lives.
Mm-hmm.
When you wrote the song, did you get reception? Did you get critique from?
We get as there can be sometimes with Sabaton, there can be people who say, "Oh, you are profiting from this," or you write a song to become popular about this. There are angles that people try to sort of attack the band Sabaton for what we are doing. Again, we are telling history and we are keeping it alive, and we choose, of
thank
course,
you
not
for
to
that,
see
Par.
that we are in any way, promoting
I'm learning a lot
anything
from
that
it
we are
because of
singing
this
about
stuff.
in this terms of, we're just saying this happened.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of people who got upset when we did this song.
Okay.
And I think that that people get upset with it shows the power of the topic. Yeah. And in one way, I think that it should just be very clear and not disputed, but it is.
Well, what about, as you said, you're telling the story of what happened. What about people that say, no, it didn't happen? What about them? I mean, they obviously get upset for a completely different reason.
Yeah, they get upset for a different reason, and we have seen a couple of those comments as well. But in the comment section, sometimes this it gets quite nasty when somebody tells like that, and the continuation of the comments is leading often into a sort of war. It's that kind of song.
Okay, well, I personally am glad that you write songs about glad. That's not what I mean, but you know what I mean. I think it's important that you write songs about
Important is a
even
good
the
word.
absolute
Yes,
darkest
because-
parts of our history.
I mean, like he says, it's important because, like, think of how much history we learned just from doing these things that you think we would know, but we just don't know.
Yeah, we were just talking about, like, some of our favorite ones that we've done so far up until this one right before we started this video, and we were talking about Charlie Brown and the Night Witches and things like that, and just like, and we just talked about in this one, inmate, you said it again,
4859.
4859, yes. And like, those stories I had never heard before I started watching this channel, ever. Bismarck, all of it. Like, I'm learning so much. So I appreciate Sabaton and what they're doing, and the fact that they're passionate about something and they are able to turn it into something else that they're passionate about. Like, that's not something that a lot of people can just do. Like,
No, especially not stuff like this. It just
right,
blows
where you
my
have
mind.
to research. Do you know how much research these guys have to do to accurately write a song?
Especially when they first started, like the internet wasn't that big back then when they first started, and
Yeah.
they're still doing the research on it and stuff. It's truly amazing, and I'm glad that they did it.
Yeah.
Because
Keep it going, Sabaton. Keep it pushing.
That you write songs about glad. That's not what I mean, but you know what I mean. I think it's important that you write songs about even the absolute darkest parts of our history. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for today. Never forget.
Thank you for watching Sabaton History Channel.
even indie is like, you could tell it's definitely a tough subject for him to talk about too.
Because like we said, they do the research, and they do have to really deep dive into it to accurately write these people's stories. And when you actively involve yourself in deep diving into research like that, you see things that you can't unsee.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's videos and there's pictures and there's diaries and there's documentation all over the place. Yeah. And when you get so far into it, you really see the horror and the pain and the terror that people absolutely felt. And it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, everybody knows the gist of it. I didn't know how it started. I didn't know it started off with the laws and everything like that. So it was really cool to learn that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we weren't taught that in school.
Yeah, well, we know the gist of it. We basically learn about the end of it, not what led up to it.
We learn about the actual Holocaust and how they, brought in groups and groups and groups of Jewish people at a time and literally ripped them apart from their families. And yeah, it's just...
Deep story, very well portrayed, taught me lots of good things. Thank you guys so much for that one. Thank you, Sabaton History, for everything you do. I love you guys. But if you guys have any other recommendations, let us know in the comments below. Check out our Discord. Or if you want bumped to the top of the list, check out the donation link in the description below.
You can also check out our merch store. We got some cool stuff coming for you guys here relatively soon, as well as all of our social media that's been scrolling below. Sorry we're kind of somber at the end of this, guys, but it'd be kind of insensitive of us to be like, at the end of such a deep video. But we're gonna go check out the music video for the song attached to this story, and
Till next time, guys.